Its history: in the mid-20th century we had a giant government program that put human beings on the moon. In the 21st century, that particular path to space is simply not open to us. It does not matter that Apollo to the moon was on most people's top 5 list of the greatest human accomplishments of the 20th century. The historical elements that drove Apollo to the moon simply no longer exist. It ain't gonna happen again. What we can do is organize an enormous number of people over the internet into effective action on the great problems of the 21st century. This video is about how to do that for human space exploration. The need. This does not mean that the need for human space exploration has gone away. Recently a major motion picture and a major TV miniseries were released. Both were set on Mars and both were very realistic. Both drew huge audiences. Also both depicted the Apollo-style approach to funding and organization, but they opened up the process to include the governments of more countries and private corporations. No go. It is not an adequate technology that is really holding us back from space, it is this type of organization. In the face of many great problems in the 21st century, this level of government resources will simply not be available. Some progress has been made in the commercialization of space. For example, the latest and greatest rockets come from companies, not the government. However, this path is limited, because the primary customer is still the government. There are a few successful commercial space products, like communication satellites, but these have limited markets, and do not involve the human exploration of space at all. Above all, the problems on Earth of the 21st century are even greater than those of the 20th, for example climate change and sea level rise. We cannot strip these efforts of funds to blast off into space, but we still need the outward vision provided best by space exploration, to keep our view of the future forward and positive. This need is stronger than ever. That forward, positive vision, for example, can serve us well in our fight against religious extremists. The biggest lesson I see from these depictions is simply that we do not yet know enough to go to Mars. We first need a really massive learning experience. This we must get for ourselves, and our most practical classroom is the moon. Move. The 21st century is a different time from 1969 with different needs and different technologies. Our cell phones now have better computers than the Apollo lunar module had. We need a different approach, and here's our proposal: move for massive, online, vetted, expedition. Massive, the effort will involve millions of people from all over the world. Online, the effort will be organized over the internet, and will have many elements so all participants can find at least a small place for themselves. Vetted, the effort will be in stages with the most successful people in each stage moving on to the next. Expedition, in the end we will establish a settlement on the moon, and from that effort learn enough to move on to Mars. We will build our knowledge and move out from Earth. This approach is only in its infancy, and will take a great amount of work from many people to achieve this mission. But, we need not wait for others, we can start the effort now. Tell the story. Where do we start? In Apollo to the moon we told the story best only after the fact, for example, through movies like Apollo 13. This time we need to start the stories early, to invite people to buy in once more to human space exploration. We at the Big Moon Dig have started this process and are in action. We are developing stories and short videos that can provide people with visions of their futures throughout these interesting times. Our pieces generate buy-in for action. Please contact us, for example see below or Google the Big Moon Dig. As for me, I'm just Digger03, an artificial intelligence from the Big Moon Dig stories, talking to you from the moon. The early steps. We have made a start with a few early steps. BMD website. We do have a website that contains listings of our stories and videos as well as lots of background materials and our reference list. The BMD forum. One of the first steps is to establish a forum, to work out the details of Move's multifaceted design. We now have a start with the Big Moon Dig blog, but much more effort is needed. This is going to be a long path that nobody can possibly travel alone. Design. Before we get too committed to any specific action, we need to work out exactly what we are trying to do. The first stage will require a lot of designing of the later stages. Management: how will we manage such a complex effort? Can we make it truly democratic? Financing: how will we raise money? Clearly we will need crowdfunding, sponsors, grants, and government contracts at one time or another. Later on, material delivery to the South Polar region of the Moon costs about $1.5 million per kilogram, and we will need tens of kilograms delivered. We can't just call ups. The story: can we organize technical people to describe the future environments of our stories, called a field of our future FOF? Can we organize amateur writers to write the stories? We now have the stories professionally edited. Should we have them professionally written as well? Should we now move on to write a book or to make a movie? The game and enrolling computer game design is expensive and complex. Again, can we do it with a cloud effort, or do we need to hire professionals? Do we need a commercial sponsor for this specific element? The mission: can we analyze the current crop of great lunar data into the detailed terrain maps, sun angles, and photography that we need to plan a real space mission? We already have had some success within this area. The science: how can we do real science in our efforts? Education: how can we turn our experience into educational materials? The software: we will need game software, mission software, and controllers for the robots. They will need at least enough artificial intelligence to keep themselves safe. The hardware: can we design all the hardware we need, starting with an Explorer rover and a lunar digger? Can we build and test prototypes on Earth? There is a lot of work to do. The game: Undermove, the Big Moon Dig game, or rather the series of games, courses, and challenges that we call the game, will be the door most people will open into our effort. These games will be the key to teaching people everything they need to know. For example, what knowledge is needed to design a lunar rover. The game will also teach skills like teleoperation of remote robots on the Moon. Undermove, the V stands for vetting, and the game will be our chief vetting tool. It takes at least 1,000 hours of practice just to find out if you are any good at something, whether athletics or playing a musical instrument, or in this case, teleoperating a lunar rover. The game is how people get their time in. In all human efforts, once the hours are in, a few people will turn out to be astonishingly good at the skill. These are the people we need to find to move up to the next level. The game and the stories are the keys to inviting masses of people to buy into our project. Buy-in is a key human capability that is responsible for all major projects, from the Great Pyramids, through the Gothic cathedrals, to Apollo to the Moon. It gets people into action and keeps them in action. To get buy-in to work, the person must be invited to imagine themselves personally succeeding in the project. The vision may be brief, but it must be very clear. Words then turn out to be the best way to get people to daydream and, through those dreams, to buy in. Hardware on the Moon: we are now in the early days, but we do need to at least mention the hardware we need to design and build. We will need a lunar explorer of the Sojourner class. It must be small and low in mass, about shoebox size, yet able to travel great distances over the lunar surface. It must be able to handle a grade of at least 15% even on a surface of fine dust. It must be teleoperated from Earth, but have enough smarts to keep itself out of trouble. We need a lunar digger. Why we need so many trenches will be explained later in this video series and in our stories. It turns out that digging in the Moon's 1/6 gravity, and on its surface of fine dust, is very difficult. Our hardware designs need to start with Earth versions that can be 3D printed and controlled with the microcomputers that millions of makers can even now program. The building and testing of these prototypes will be key challenges. When we send something to the Moon, we must know what we are doing. By the time we send someone to Mars, we must know exactly what we are doing. Video series: I have taken enough of your time for now. The rest of this video series will follow in 2 more parts. In part 2, Location, we will look at how determined amateurs can now reduce NASA lunar data to find great locations for a settlement. The data are out there. We studied the data from NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter LRO and, working on a home computer, found our first candidate for a lunar settlement location. It is the Scott A Massif, about 120 kilometers from the lunar South Pole. It is a peak of eternal light, and is within easy rolling distance of several permanently shadowed craters. All in all, it is a gift from the gods. In Part 3, Habitat, we will look at key questions in the design of lunar habitats and finally answer the question, why all the digging? We will also discuss why our photovoltaic panels stick straight up, what a tomato tree is, and why our exercise center is so different. And we will revive the art of the cairn. Look for these parts soon. Watch for #BigMoonDig. In conclusion, we cannot do Apollo to the moon again, period. However, we can use 21st century technology starting today, to accomplish human space explorations in new ways. We propose, move for massive, online, vetted, expedition. The moon is our classroom on the way to Mars. Watch for new parts of the series in 2017 and please join us. We can make this happen.